Daniel Paisner. Your name may typically fly under the radar, but your work certainly does not. Since graduating from the School of Arts and Sciences in '82, you have ghostwritten more than 60 books, with many of your titles finding their way to the New York Times bestseller list. This impressive career was likely no surprise to those who knew you while you were at Tufts. During your 4 years, you served as editor-in-chief of the Tufts Observer and were a leader in the newspaper as well as the teacher of an experimental college course. Topping it all off, you found the time to write your first novel. Your first ghostwriting assignment came from a scholarship set up by a Tufts alum. After that, your career really took off. Lauded by New York Magazine as the most prolific living ghost, who else can say that? You are known for your amazing ability to listen and to empower others. You translate lived experiences into stories that inspire and create a sense of community among us all. Many of your books offer a voice to the famous, Denzel Washington, Serena Williams, John Kasich, to name a few. But you have said that the books you are most proud of are the ones that share the stories of seemingly average people who have lived through extraordinary circumstances. One such example is your work with Christina Chieger, a woman who lived through the Nazi occupation in Poland and never shared her story with anyone outside of her family before finding comfort in your welcoming nature. I believe that your daughters, Hannah Paisner and Rose Paisner, class of 2013 and 2018 respectively, said it best when they shared what they admire most about you is your ability to make people comfortable in otherwise uncomfortable situations. You're excellent in writing, your truly astonishing humility, and of course, your devotion to your family make us all proud. The Tufts University Alumni Association is pleased to present you with a 2017 Distinguished Achievement Award. Congratulations.
Thank you, Nancy, for that great introduction. I couldn't have written it better myself. I need to do, you'll have to forgive me for a moment. I think I need to do a costume change. I love the format of this program. I love how they start with the young alumni, then we go to the distinguished alumni, and we go back to the young alumni, which is great. So thank you for that. I wrote some things down. Let your life speak. That's a Quaker principle that seems appropriate here. And if you've passed through the portal of our admissions office the past couple of years, if you have children or grandchildren who've done so, you'll know that the university has been encouraging prospective students to let their lives speak, to show rather than tell, to live rather than audition, to move about the planet in a way that is true to themselves. That's a little bit what I try to do for a living, only I give voice to the lives and careers, the thoughts and ideals of some of our leading public figures, actors and athletes, politicians, entrepreneurs, ordinary individuals, as Nancy said, who've seen or done or experienced something extraordinary. they've got the living part down. Their lives are speaking loudly enough for them to land that book deal in the first place. But it can be an intimidating thing to render a life on the page, to distill a lifetime of accomplishments, of success and struggle into a page-turning story or coherent narrative. They need a little help finding their voice, that's all. I've been thinking a lot about the notion of voice, about the power of voice, finding your voice. In many ways, I've found my voice here at Tufts. When I first set foot on this campus nearly 40 years ago, I came here wanting to be Woodward and Bernstein. Not one or the other, but both. It was the era of the swashbuckling investigative journalist, the fearless reporter, willing to stop at nothing to ferret out the truth. And I found an outlet for all that here at the Tufts Observer. The Observer, I covered campus tuition protests, budget increases, the Carpenter Hall fire right down the street, the push to build the campus center, our bulge class, for those of you who were around here in 1977, living at the Sheraton Commander. In fact, before, when we all met for tea for a little bit to talk about a little bit about what was going on at the university, we were in the building across the street. I don't know what it's now called, and I was standing with Tony Monaco, and he was trying to figure out what this building used to be, and I have a very specific memory of going to that building, which I think was like a Elks Club or some civic municipal building, and I went there for a rally that Jane Fonda appeared at because I was covering the efforts of our clerical workers on campus to organize through the National Labor Union known as 925, which is where they got the title for that movie 9 to 5 that she did with Lily Tomlin. So she came to rally the troops, and I got to interview her on the steps right across the building. So what goes around comes around. So while I was here, I met all kinds of interesting people, famous and infamous, and they came to campus to speak or perform. And when I would chase them down on behalf of the Observer to interview them ahead of their arrival, it would often work out that the only time they would have would be on the car ride to campus from Logan Airport. So I got in the habit of arranging to meet them in this crappy little Plymouth Sapporo I used to drive, and then I would Uber them out to Medford. And I can remember picking up John Anderson, who was the Illinois congressman, and Jerry Brown, the governor of California then and again. And I would take the long way back to the Hill just to squeeze a little more time with them in the car. And they were both running for president back then. And I can also remember driving Al Franken and his SNL writing partner, Tom Davis, from Logan to Cousins Gym for a stand-up gig. And who would have thought, flashing forward 37 years, that it'd be the comedian who might just emerge out of that group as the first tough speaker to ride in my crappy Sapporo to one day win the White House. All this time later, I'm still interviewing the famous and the not nearly so famous, but I never imagined that I would make my mark as a ghostwriter, taking a kind of back seat and working mostly anonymously to help tell the stories of all these amazing and sometimes not so amazing people. It is journalism of a kind, it is reporting of a kind, but it is also something else entirely. The people I work with are, for the most part, accustomed to being in front of the cameras, but it's the people who live in relative anonymity that I enjoy working with the most. The FDNY battalion commander, who somehow survived the collapse of the North Tower of the World Trade Center while he was inside the building, in the 7th floor stairwell. The young Polish girl we heard about earlier, who somehow survived for 14 months in the sewers of Lvov, where she hid with her family and a group of a dozen or so Jews during the German occupation. The Alaskan bush pilot, who somehow survived a plane crash on Mount McKinley, lost his legs due to frostbite after waiting 5 days to be rescued, and then returned to the mountain several years later and summited on his prosthetic legs. The world champion longboard surfer, who somehow survived a childhood as one of 9 kids living in a 24-foot camper raised by a nutty, bohemian, Stanford-educated doctor father who decided his family would live off the grid and spend their days traveling the globe, chasing the perfect wave. The young man born to an American anthropologist and a Yanomami tribeswoman who somehow survived a childhood in the wilds of New Jersey and found a way to return to the remotest part of the Venezuelan rainforest and reconnect with his mother and his uncles and the 2 Yanomami wives his tribe had arranged to welcome him home. It is a privilege and an honor to share some of these stories, and a little bit thrilling to stand off to the side and watch as they help to shape our national conversation. Next week, for example, I will look on with great rooting interest as my friend John Kasich, the Ohio governor, shares his experiences from the front lines of the 2016 presidential campaign, sounding a compelling voice of reason and offering his take on what it might take to set right the American pendulum. His book, our book, Two Paths, America Divided or United, has a shot to shape our national conversation as well. And here again, it is a privilege and an honor to have had a silent hand in its creation. Forgive, please, the little product placement. Now available for pre-order on Amazon. Let your life speak. Indeed. Only in my case, it has been a professional life giving voice to the accomplishments of others. It's an honor and a privilege, to be sure, and it has its roots in my time here on the Hill. There are a couple of people I'd like to thank for me being here right now. We talked a little bit across the street just now about some of our mentors and influences here at Tufts and some of the shaping, formative moments we had here, and I had a chance to give a shout out to Alan Leibowitz, who was my English teacher of many times over, the same class many times over, which we were allowed to repeat for credit and for a grade. But I think I must have taken 8 classes with him by the time I got out of here. He liked me. But he also gave us permission, those of us sitting around his living room where our class met, our creative writing class would meet on Packard Avenue. He gave us permission to become a writer, to dream, to read books, to celebrate the life of an author, and to have that feel to us like it means something and that it would matter. So my hat's off to Alan. And Saul Gittleman, who I saw in the back just now. Saul, where are you here? Through the stories you shared in your Yid Lit class, and the joy you brought in sharing those stories, it once again brought home to me the message that a writer's job has great value, and you can inform the culture in a great and lasting way outside those pages. So thank you, Saul, and thank you to you and Robin for being here tonight. I also want to say hello and thank you to Jen Simons, my great pal, who's over here, formerly of our Tufts Admissions Office, for nominating me for this great honor, as well as my now lifelong friends and fellow jumbos, and now our trustees, Tom Alprin, who is here with his wife Marcia, and Neil Shapiro, who's not here, I don't think, for weighing in on my behalf. I want to thank my Tufts friends and family, and I want to thank my actual friends and family, including my long-suffering wife Leslie, my son Jake, who's not here because some of us Paisners actually have to work for a living. My Aunt Lois is here. My niece Rebecca's here. She's a freshman. Say hi to Rebecca. She's one of our favorite young jumbos. And I also want to give a special thanks to my jumbo daughters, Rose, class of 2018, and Hannah, class of 2013. And their wonderful boy toys are here too. They're jumbo pals. Also Tufts folks, there's Najee and Jake are sitting with them. And our great friend Sudi is here too. Hi, Sudi. But I want to thank Rose and Hannah for finding some sweet things to say about me and making the case that their dear old dad should be counted among this accomplished group. But mostly, I really want to thank Nancy and the rest of the Alumni Committee, the Awards Committee, and the Alumni Committee for shining a light this way. And to all my fellow alums, young and not so young, who will be standing here on this stage tonight, for standing in that light with me. We are, to bend and borrow a phrase from our newly minted Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Peggy Noonan, we are the 1,000 points of light on the hill. Together, those who have stood on this stage in the past and those who might stand here in the future, may we all continue to shine meaningful light on this special place and to lift our voices together in celebration of our shared legacy. Let your life speak, and hold on to my number in case you find you need a little push when you sit down and decide to write about it. Thank you all.